The Solar Builder Community Project of the Year Award winner, as voted on by our readers, is the former Air Force Base brownfield in St. Albans, Vermont. This 500 kilowatt ground mount solar system comprises 1,700 panels and serves numerous local customers, including 4 area farms. These customers are receiving net metering credits on their energy bill. Here to talk about the project are David Carpenter, General Counsel and Director of Development, and Peter Edlin, VP of Operations, both with Green Lantern Solar, which served as developer EPC and installer on this project. David and Peter, thank you for joining me today. To start off, can you give me some background on how this project was developed and why this former Air Force base was an ideal site for solar?
We acquired and sort of inherited the site at a very early stage from a small development shop that we've worked with over the years. We moved it through development, working with the landowner, moving it through Vermont's public utility process on interconnection, and then sent it over to Peter to get it built.
Can you talk a little bit how this project was financed?
We financed this project on book. Our in-state partner in Vermont for financing has been the Vermont Economic Development Authority, which has been a great partner for us over the years. We retained the project, retained long-term ownership of it, which we've done with about 30 of the 120 some odd projects we've done. And we're now exploring ways to transfer the tax credits under the new provisions in the Investment Reduction Act.
And I understand the project kind of encountered several challenges related to the pandemic, to supply chain, weather, and site contamination. How did you guys overcome those various obstacles?
Patience and planning. We did a lot of planning on the front end. We actually commissioned in the middle of March. The bulk of the construction was December to end of February. And, we know going into it, we knew we had some issues with parts. We did long lead items. We did jump on early. However, because it was winter in Vermont, we jumped on the civil work and we got the site prep done in December before ground froze. And then we worked ourselves through a challenging build site, December, January, February.
I'd like to dive in a little deeper about the project location. With it being the former Air Force base, was the site contamination typical to other brownfield projects that you've developed?
We've developed a lot of brownfield sites, landfill sites in Vermont. So certainly our development side and certainly our EPC side has a lot of familiarity with building sites that aren't greenfields. One of the appealing things about this site was that it was out of the way and at the top of a hill with good exposure, at the end of a private road where there really wouldn't be very many potential conflicts. Being a winter build, obviously, being at the top of a hill in Vermont in the middle of the winter time on a very rocky site brought its own set of challenges. But in terms of the contamination, no brownfield is necessarily like another brownfield. There's always different challenges depending on the contamination and the amount of contamination and obviously what's there.
Were there any sort of restrictions related to it being an Air Force base?
The restrictions that came along with it were related mostly to the soil management plan. That was really the only impact that we had to deal with when we were dealing with the construction from that complication. Obviously, the site itself had its own set of challenges based on the topography up there, but from a regulatory standpoint, it was not as complicated as it could have been.
Yeah, perhaps from a regulating standpoint, it was not complicated, but from a logistics standpoint, it was very complicated. We encountered concrete, asphalt, wetlands, existing conduits in the ground. There were so many obstacles that we had to deal with going through this site. Logistically, from where it sat at the top of a mountain, weather was a huge factor for us. We hit many days, it's snow covered, wind chills below, 20 below, 30 below.
Yeah, I think that kind of leads into my next question. Other than the weather, what were the ground conditions like and how did that impact construction?
We tried to hustle the civil work before the ground froze, which we did manage to do barely. It's a rock face. We had a ledge existence through the whole thing. We did some grading where we could. There was no blasting. We did quite a bit of tree clearing on the southern southeastern edges. So from that perspective, there was challenges of site conditions. We used APA ground screw foundations, so we drilled quite a bit. Probably 85% of the site was drilled. We had to use some ballasts on the fencing that surrounded the site in locations where we couldn't drill into the soils because of the conditions. So it was a whole potpourri of technique to build this site. I mean, I think we pulled every tool out of our toolbox to make it work.
Now that the project is in operation, how is it serving the community?
Because it's part of the net metering program in Vermont, there are several off-takers who are benefiting from the net metering credits for Vermont farms that are currently our off-takers on this array. And so they're getting the discount on their electric bills and helping them stay afloat. In addition, of course, as with every net metering project in Vermont, the landowner is receiving rent payments. A piece of property that was probably not good for much else has been put into redevelopment. The municipality benefits from the property taxes. The state has its own taxation framework. The state benefits. Green Mountain Power, the utility, gets the Class 1 RECs off of the project as well. The projects don't retain those RECs, and GMP gets to claim those. So it's a project I think we're all really proud of over here.
Yeah, it seems like you guys overcame a lot of challenges in bringing this project forward. What would you say were sort of the keys in bringing this project online successfully?
Perseverance, I think. We had to grind through a lot of issues at every level. Contaminated sites always, at least from the sort of legal and development side, have their own set of challenges. And then, Peter and his crew did an amazing job, getting this thing built in the dead of winter to meet a commissioning deadline that we didn't have to ask for further extensions on, and it was something to watch this thing come together.
I'd like to take the credit, but the truth is the APA crew, Terry and his boys, working through a really cold January. E&S Electric did all the electrical work. Those guys, they stood out there in 30 below temperatures to do their work. There were some miserable days up there. Donuts and coffee don't cut it in February on the top of a mountain in Vermont sometimes.
Yeah, I had a full head of black hair when we started the project. And of course, at the end, Peter, right, we had to put a fence around the whole thing. So
yeah, it was quite a build. It was a feather in our cap to pull it off. And the site is, it's really top notch.
Well, David and Peter, thank you for joining me today to discuss this exciting project, and congratulations on the award.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thanks, Brad.